Great. And so welcome to the second education cross-cutting group. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Uh, so I don't think you were with us last time, so maybe just we did some brief introductions last time. That was helpful just so we could get oriented with the group before we dig into the work, and I'll give a brief recap of how we got to where we are now. But could we just briefly do some introductions? I could kick it off. I'm Liz from the Climate Action Office. I'm supporting the work of this education cross-cutting group to support the update of the Climate Action Plan. And I'll pass it off to Alice.
Hi, I'm Alice Peel. I'm a planning commissioner in Waitsfield, and I'm on the Rural Resources and Adaptation Subcommittee for the Climate Action Plan. Next.
Hi, good morning. I'm Melissa Bailey. I'm the director of the State Energy Office at the Public Service Department, and I co-chair the Cross-Sector Mitigation Subcommittee.
I think that leaves me. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah, Doug Webster. I'm with the Vermont Agency of Education, 32nd year there in career and technical education. I've also been involved. I think this is significant when it comes to this stuff is the maker movement. Founded Champlain Maker Faire, Generator Maker Space, and with that, a bunch of projects that have an impact on climate.
Awesome, thank you. I know Billy was having some technical difficulties. Billy, are you able to hear us? Or do you do a brief intro?
Sorry, I just joined by my phone because my computer's not working. But my name is Billy Coster. I'm the Director of Planning and Policy for the Vermont Agency of Natural Resources, and I'm one of the Agriculture and Ecosystem Subcommittee co-chairs for the Climate Council.
Great, thank you. Just to help ground us where we are and what we've been working on. So we have cross-cutting issues that cut across the entire climate action plan, education being one of them. We are, as this collective, so folks from the three subcommittees that are drafting recommendations, so rural resilience, agriculture and ecosystems, and cross-sector mitigation, and also state implementers who are supporting this work, are trying to look at our existing recommendations for this education issue, and then how are we revising, updating, keeping as is existing recommendations as we move into the update of the plan. And so for our agenda today, really it's to continue that work. We're going to review these, kind of continue on through the columns line by line, and continue to revise as needed. And then we'll also have an opportunity to identify any new opportunities for perhaps, like I think Melissa recommended, some new pathway ideas, and maybe folks have others as well that can be incorporated into education. We'll have time for public comment, and then we'll wrap up, and next steps, we'll either be able to get through all of this work and confirm this is our recommendations that would go to steering committee, or we'll have to talk about next steps of how do we want to request that we could continue this work to the steering committee if we don't complete it in this meeting, and then we'll wrap up. Any questions on the agenda before we get started? Okay. And I will pull up spreadsheet. Okay. So I think we have reviewed some of these strategies and actions. We had made a note to revisit this one, but I want to hold on that because Sophia had made a note on this, and she's going to be joining us a little bit later in this meeting, so we can return to that. So I believe that we are here if folks want to take a moment to read that. And again, we'll just a reminder of the process, we'll be making decisions about whether to revise strategy actions, keep as is, remove it, or perhaps combine it with another action. But again, we are here.
So sorry, I was trying to transfer over from my phone to my computer, so I missed a little bit what you're saying. So we're just continuing going through the template, looking at actions and suggesting whether there needs to be any modifications to them or updates.
And would it be, I could also, I'll share this link that I'm looking at too in the chat in case folks want to pull it up on their own computer.
I know we're looking at things that are being implemented as well as the other ones.
Yeah, we're looking at everything.
Okay.
So as far as being implemented, do folks have any thoughts on this one? Keep as is, since it is being implemented, or anything else that you want to add on to that?
Yeah, I mean, I thought we talked maybe last time about being implemented, being sorted kind of at a different part, like at the bottom of the list, essentially. I'd be fine keeping this as is, unless people had strong feelings about making modifications. If we make modifications, right, then we can't say it's being implemented anymore. It's kind of like back to square one.
Okay. Okay, then I'll put keep as is for the next one as well. And we could start to look at advancing and no action taken. So that puts us at this one, establish stronger relationships, line 12.
Faculty at Vermont refers to which institution?
That's a good point. It doesn't specify.
Yeah,
We could revise that to say, I'm not sure what you all think, but like Vermont higher education institutions or something like that. I don't know if there was a specific one in mind, but we can make it broader if that's what do folks think.
is it
That's
like all state agencies? I do a lot of work with CVRPC, the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. And I think there's a lot of relationships already that I know we have, and planners and our regional planning commission has with state agencies. Are there particular ones for this or just all state agencies? And then, I just looking for a little more specifics here. I mean, I know that our regional planning commission does a lot of work with UVM and let's see.
Yeah, I'm looking for more notes here.
Is this still to do with agro and farming?
Yeah. Um, just trying to find that action.
And I know Vermont Land Trust does a lot of work with farmers. Educating them on restoring wetlands, etc.
Oh, chair, okay. Let's see.
Oh, there it is.
Okay. So here it looks like it's outlining which agencies. This advancing, okay.
CAO is,
Our Climate Action Office.
okay,
Yep. So I could add this to our notes just so we have it there as well. See administration.
Yeah, I think those notes are helpful, Liz. I mean, I'd just add that, like, right, that one's a hard one to measure. Strength in relationships is a pretty tough metric. So,
Yeah.
CAO will reach out on X basis, is more tangible.
Yeah. Um, so we could revise it to have stronger language in there. Um,
Yeah, I mean, not to assign work, but to Alice's question too about like which state agencies, I think saying the Climate Action Office is the conduit through which the other agencies can engage makes sense. So having Climate Action Office own it, but soliciting input from other agencies.
Yeah, I think this is a place where like the interagency advisory board can have this as a topic that they discuss. Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to have the climate office be responsible for this, but I think certainly convening and coordinating the conversation amongst state agencies seems reasonable.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think I'd say strengthen relationships between da da da, like, and then at the end put through whatever the thing is we want to have happen. So through quarterly outreach or something that's a metric that's we can define success and we know when it's happening.
okay. How's that?
Works for me.
okay.
Okay. Okay.
And
Next one.
it is happening. Now,
Yeah, this does seem like, and especially with the work with the coordination between state agencies, does seem to be held by the Interagency Advisory Board. I mean, I've been to one meeting so far, but it does seem like that's the role that they're playing. Um, But I guess the question I have is the part about relationships with higher learning, regional research, that might be a separate piece to this. Like if we pull that out. But I'm not sure who necessarily would implement that.
Yeah, I just know that the Central Regional Planning Commission does they coordinate efforts, and they also, if it's something that, like, say, researchers at UVM are doing for natural resources or wetlands or something, even if they start this project on their own, CVRPC planners in that area make sure that um, they host webinars and follow what these UVM researchers are doing as a way they educate themselves really back and forth on what each agency is doing. I'm not sure about other universities, but it's kind of already there. I mean, UVM contacts CVRPC, and CVRPC contacts UVM. I think also in the area of economic development and population. So, I can at least speak to our uh, regional commission and
Right.
say that it's happening.
Mm-hmm. It's through UVM.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, if we could highlight that part of this and revisit it. I could also ask folks at the office if they know more, if people on the call don't about the, like, it sounds like there's like some, yeah, regional planning coordinating with UVM, but I just don't know like broader than that, like
yeah.
who would lead, who, holds that piece of it. Um, so I could highlight that and, maybe pull up by email or revisit it if we come back to another meeting, and then we can move on to the next one if folks don't know more. Does that sound good? Okay. So while I highlight that, maybe you could just start to look at the next one for creating a curriculum.
Correct. Would this be
This one.
13
Yeah, 13.
for high schools, elementary, or
Hmm,
universities?
I'm not sure. Let me see if
There's a
there's
need
any.
for both, I think.
Yeah.
Have people come in that could talk to an elementary school level or a high school level.
Sorry, I had to go discipline a puppy. We're talking about the establish and fund an educational program that explains the role that Vermont farmers and foragers, etc., play.
Line 13,
Oh, okay.
create a curriculum,
I'm
a
sorry.
climate curriculum. All good. Fellowship. And I'm just trying to find it in the other tab to see if there's more notes on it.
It's not on the sheet I have.
Create a climate curriculum.
Should these be more like engage the agency of education or like the NEA around creating like because there's no ownership of a lot of these.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't know who they're anticipating would create this curriculum.
Yeah. I wonder if Doug, do you have any insight on agency of education side?
Well, you've got all kinds of different levels and different players. Um, I mean, in my world, one example is I was just in Phoenix last week, and they were revising the career clusters, which is mostly for career and technical education. About 1/3 of the high school population, or the latter grades. And they recently came up with a career path that is related to climate and so forth. So, I mean, that's a new development that we just have here. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's much more to talk about here, but I'm not 100% sure I am understanding the context. Uh, just got off the plane yesterday, and I wasn't at last week's meeting, so I see a portion of a document in front of me, but I'm not clear if, I mean, is there any way I could see the whole document? I don't know if that was shared or.
Yeah, I could. So there's like, it might be helpful for you to see the part of the initial climate action plan. But we also do have a PDF version of this entire document to look through as well. Um, I could send both. Um,
Okay,
but
thank you. Yep.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's helpful, Doug, just kind of high level. The initial climate action plan that came out about 4 years, 3 or 4 years ago, had a number of recommendations related to education that were kind of teased out of other themes. And
Yeah.
this group is looking at those and seeing if they need to be updated or further prioritized.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, because it seems like the one below it too, Billy, what you're saying too, with kind of like, would this be like agency of education? That one also has no action taken it, but I wonder if the same question applies there.
Yeah, I mean, it's cross-cutting. I don't see a program that, like in career and tech, all of them should have some input.
Okay, so maybe, let's see. I wonder if it'd be helpful for if there's like a batch where we email them to Agency of Education, like if Doug, I don't know if you'd be the point person or someone else, where we say like, do you have any recommendations of like the best way to revise or update this or identify?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's fine. Send it to me and
okay,
I'll see if I can get others involved.
okay, okay. So maybe I'll put notes like check in with AOE on update.
Mhm. Well, let me ask you this. Has anybody from the agency, agency been involved with this conversation?
Um, I think you're the first one to join from, yeah, I think AOE, yeah, not
Okay,
last meeting.
all right.
I can chime in on that briefly. Just want to provide the context that Catherine Rossman and I met twice to go over the education-related items that were specific to OAOE. So I don't think it's in this sheet, but in one of the more like, maybe it's in a different tablet, but the one that has like all the notes column, of Catherine's feedback on some of those, more so feedback of like where they stand and a little bit extra context of like, well, here's what this would be like, or here's maybe a little bit how it needs to change. So there is that record of feedback that Catherine's given.
Okay.
Are they in these notes? I think they are, right? Somewhere.
I'm sorry, I'd have to look at the whole
Yeah,
document.
okay,
I'm not, they're not on the screen right now.
okay. Okay, so we could go back to those and sit through that. Let's see. Um, Maybe folks want to go down to line 15 and review that one, where it says more information needed.
I mean, that's a big task, right? Redesign the state education funding model. I guess that's another one where I'd want outreach to like the career and technical education centers. Like, is this an ask they've made that they need more funding?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot about uh, funding. Revising state education funding. That's a big one right now. And this sounds like it's specific to career and technical education centers. Is this sort of saying we should be having curriculum that could encourage students to follow a career path towards climate resilience jobs?
You know, there may be that, I mean, what I mentioned earlier is a revision of the National Career Clusters model, and
Mhm.
that may have an impact on what is offered in the at the career and technical centers. I mean, that statement you just had in that block was, rather global, not was not specific to climate. Uh, so I don't know what the context of that is, but I mean that is currently going on in the world. It's been going on for a couple of years now, or I should say more like 30 years now, but some a little bit more focused these days. But when it comes to um, having, I mean, I see a twofold thing. One is there could be programs that emerge out of this career cluster that are, directed toward climate, related occupations and, career paths and all that. But the other piece I think is more, just as important, and maybe not, if not more important, is that you have some components in every program that would be addressing things like reduction, adaptation, and sequestration approaches in some way.
Yeah, and wouldn't you want to have courses in there? You could put them through a science curriculum or a sociology curriculum, just to educate students on climate change and the types of things needed to mitigate it or to understand the effects. And then the other track here would be getting students interested and having a program that would be more career focused.
Yes. Yes. Agreed. Agreed. And there's science and social studies and that. I mean, that's one angle, of course. I mean, like I think of as a program yesterday in construction trades and so forth. Well, there are certain things that they would be doing that would have a day-to-day impact on climate, you know, positive and negative,
Yeah.
and somehow each area would need to have their own, their own sets.
Would you like to
No,
revise that one then? Okay.
Here you go
I
back.
think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. How would you like to frame it?
I mean, so that thing is very, it's a generic thing, right? It's workforce pipe access. Does this have to be specific to climate? Would it have to?
It all ties back to emission reductions, everything that this plan is going towards. So, as long as there's the direct, it leads to that through whether it's be climate education or something else.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's set right, the way line 15, that block is set now, it has very little, I don't think it has anything to do with climate.
Can I chime in with some context on that? Or of how I read it, and maybe this is part of what the revision needs to make it more specific to climate. But in the I know especially the weatherization world, and general trades that are available for home improvements, many of which have to be done before weatherization can even happen. I imagine this is true in certain other sectors of emissions reduction, such as EV technicians, perhaps solar installers. But I think that my read on this is that the goal of supporting more people to be able to access trades professions is that there is a serious workforce barrier in moving the needle on certain emissions reductions activity. And maybe the revision here just needs to make it more specific about what kind of trades we're talking about and how those contribute to the state's emissions reductions goals. Does that help?
Oh, well, it helps. And yes, it needs to be more specific, because when I read this, I go like, yeah, we're doing that every day. And it's a multi-year effort to do a revision on this. But if we can get it down to those specific, it may be cross-cutting, and it may be and there may be specifics for each area. I mean, yeah, there's access issues, but that doesn't necessarily correlate to, um, climate impact.
Right.
So in terms of the specific trades, are there
I mean,
suggestions for what to add in here?
well, for example, in automotive, last year we put up, we had about 1.5 million that went to EV training
Hmm.
in automotive programs and engineering programs. Um, I mean, that's just like one example. Um, I mean, it,
Yeah.
it, it would make, I think it would make sense to like go through the general clusters or pathways and just look at it through a lens of climate. And we're talking, the what I see as the three major areas, which would be the reduction, adapt, and and draw down where it can happen. But I mean, it just seems like, and I don't know what's below this, so I don't know, don't know if we're missing something, but it would be much more tangible for career and technical education to have some very I mean very specific things. Like you mentioned the weatherization, and yes, that I mean that's something that can be applied to certain curriculum in like building trades. Um, However, I don't see it happening across all building trades programs, and so we'd have to do something to ensure that happens.
Mhm. I know from working at a wind turbine company that um, there's two paths there. One is actually um, design, which is very high level. Well, I have three. The other is building those wind turbines. And three, what was really critical that the companies were asking for more was training in servicing the wind turbines, which is true also of solar. Um,
Right.
once you create them, you got to keep them going.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's
Right.
things like heat pump, solar, wind. It's
Yep.
like installation and maintenance.
Hmm.
You gotta have the maintenance component.
And
So
those are
maybe like
career need.
so for this revision, it sounds like I'm hearing a couple different things, but one of them would be to add like the actual sectors that these educations and workforce pipelines would be part of, and it sounds like perhaps three or possibly more. I'm also just mindful that we do have, and apologies if I didn't mention this before in the beginning, we do also have a workforce development cross-cutting group as well. So I just want to make sure that we're not duplicating any efforts, but I think with like an educational lens, it also makes sense to have this through line here too. Um, but yeah, so are there, I guess, Doug, I wonder if would it make sense for us to reach out about finding out what's happening with specific programs right now? Or are there some that we could include in here for now and then add to it as we go? Because yeah, I just wondering in terms of next steps for this specific action.
Yeah, I might suggest like providing a list of different programs that would be most affected or could be most affected.
Okay.
Uh, and it wouldn't, maybe we could just start with things like, construction trades, architecture and construction trades, transportation and automotive, um, engineering, and, design as
Hmm.
just, placekeepers, and probably the ones most would be most affected. Um, But like I said, I don't think it ends there. I mean, there's certainly others like, the agriculture and natural resources. And I think we just they revised the career clusters to separate those, but I have to look at them again. I'm still not 100% familiar with how they're
Service
sorted, but
Okay.
and
Okay.
service. And wouldn't it be a good thing for the Department of Education also to make sure that these are happening in our community colleges? Like don't doesn't don't don't schools offer students courses at the technical colleges or community colleges if it's not available
y-
within the school system?
yes, it we have this thing. It's a dual enrollment thing. So there are students that will take college classes, well, both at with the CCV and
Mhm.
at and within the technical center. Now, is CCV our purview? Are we? I mean, we do provide federal funding, Perkins federal funding to CCV, and um, there may be something we could attach to the criteria for Perkins funding
Mhm.
that would address. Uh,
Um,
but
I
I don't
don't,
know. There
yeah,
might be a different avenue. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry to interrupt, Ms. Meffel, about I want to make sure that we get to public comment, and Sophie did just send a suggestion for
yeah.
not this may won't be the exact language, but something like this. I put in the revised language column if folks could just take a look. This won't be the final, but this could be perhaps the direction that this goes in.
Yeah.
Looks like
Mhm.
it. Okay.
Good.
Um, okay. Um, So we're not done with the work, obviously, but this was a good start, and we could talk about like kind of next steps and directions that we want to go in after this. So I'll pause for a minute though, just for public comment, though I don't think we have anyone from the public on the line, but just in case. Okay. Um, so in terms of next steps, we still obviously have some to go through here. And also it seems like just some work with perhaps I connect with Sophie and we see what we have from Agency of Education so far, and there might be more outreach to be done. But I want to check in about what we'll need to do after this because the recommendation from the steering committee was to have 2 cross-cutting meetings for each group. So this is our second meeting. So I want to check in with you all to see if we will be having another steering committee meeting, not next week, but the following week. And to see if there was like a proposed process for this group, whether would you like to all meet again? Would you like I could do some work on these that we essentially had question for, and I could reach out by email. Between that, I'm just kind of curious what you'd like any ideas for next steps and perhaps a request to the steering committee about the remaining part of this work.
Well, which areas did we address? Have we talked about in these past 2 meetings?
Um, it looks like the pathways 26 around education research partnerships we got into but didn't finish.
Mhm.
We did the like farm and forest land owners, technical assistance here, when it relates to lands and waters pathway. So we've gotten to 2 pathways here.
Mhm.
Um, and then still to go on the docket, it looks like education for private landowners, um, languages in Vermont agencies, um, and then some any ideas around new pathways we also haven't gone into. So that's what's remaining. That's a great question. Thank you.
So it seems obvious we do need to keep meeting. And I mean, I think we've brought up some good points and refined pathway, contents quite well, in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I mean, Liz, I could certainly participate in like one more meeting, like in the short term. So I guess in terms of questions for the steering committee, are we working with the December deadline to finalize the work to lift up to the council? Getting some clarity on that because it's hard to imagine the council's gonna consider all 300 recommendations at one meeting. So just getting some clarity around, do we possibly have a little bit of wiggle room? For those of us who are on multiple subcommittees, it's just, as you know, crunch time. So beyond like one more meeting in the short term, I'd be really stretched for capacity, but could certainly do more in January, February if this section could trickle over into the new year. And also, if you and the team at the climate office has capacity and time to do some finagling with the spreadsheet in advance of the next meeting, for us to review that, I'd support that as well. But understand you guys are stretched.
Mhm.
We're also like a task group, right? So we can share documents, like working documents. So I think if we don't necessarily need to meet, if someone does a rewrite of this, a markup, we could kind of share comments via email as well, right? That's another option.
Yeah, that isn't, I mean, we did say what steering committee adopted was that it'd be 2 public meetings. But we also do have this document that is editable, like when we're not meeting. I just need to double check that if we're going to continue working, does it need to be public if we said the first 2 meetings were public? It's just a question I would need to ask because I'm not sure. Oh, Bill, you're muted.
Sorry, I was saying I'm all for public meetings, but I think if we're just kind of wordsmithing a document, I think that can happen in the background, and then we could get back together publicly to kind of finalize it.
Yeah.
I agree with the process that Billy's proposing.
Yeah.
That approach makes sense to me. Let's try and get as far as we can with the document without a meeting and then finalize everything in one more public meeting.
Okay. Does that sound good to everyone? So that's what I'll propose. I'll see if we could do.
I would say that yes, we're trying to get this done. And I would tell you that I've had at least 2 other conversations with other working groups that were all feeling I wouldn't say stressed, but concerned about the tight deadline. And, people have jobs. I'm retired. But still there are other projects that can distract me and suck up a whole week. So, I just wanted to point out that we are starting to feel pressed for time and wishing we had a little bit more leeway.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks. Yeah, I think so I guess the next steps are I'll find out the clarity around like when are cross-cutting issues being presented. Is it at the December 16th meeting or not, just so we understand our timeline. And I'll be in touch with follow-up by email about the work that's going to be happening offline around like wordsmithing, getting updates from AOE and all of that teed up so that way when we make a request to meet again with steering committee, maybe it would just be one more meeting to really just kind of go through all of that and finalize it. Does that sound good to everyone?
Mm.
Sure.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all and happy Halloween.
Thanks all.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.